Well, we're kicking off another interview / podcast, whatever we want to call it. We have our own YouTube channel and we're starting to grow that out. And, every month we usually try to bring in like a really key guest that can come in and provide just an overview of what they do and then how they're helping customers in the online e-com community. And obviously, we help on the payment side, operations and risk, and helping clients really build the right payment stack. But in terms of just building your payment stack, you also have to keep your books clean. You got to make sure that everything is accounted for. And, that seems to be a growing need and demand as customers scale. They tend to encounter these problems around just cash flow, balancing the books and making sure that everything's right. So we have a great partner here, Abir with UpCounting, who has worked with, a few different clients of ours and has really done some great things. So Abir, we're glad to have you on the show today and look forward to kind of getting into some of these questions we got and seeing how you can help our customers.
Yeah, absolutely. I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, just kind of kicking us off and just starting off, I always like to understand how you got into what you're doing, and your background is pretty unique. And, we met, I think it was in January of this year in Newport Beach for a summit event. And it was great just kind of learning what you do and chatting. But I know you do, but obviously just for the audience here, just explain kind of your background and what got you into your business and why you started it.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's a bit of a topsy-turvy story, but I'll try to keep it super concise. So, I mean, the origins are fairly straightforward. I have a background as a CPA, worked in the big four firms. I was a VP or built the finance function at a startup where I helped raise $60 million, did a bunch of boring finance stuff. But the interesting part is that while I was there, we acquired an e-commerce brand, and due to, let's just say, various circumstances, I had the opportunity to take over the e-com brand and run it. So just kind of fell in love with e-com. I didn't know anything about it at the beginning, but I spent all my evenings and weekends learning everything about it. So I was putting, orders in with the manufacturer, managing the 3PL, editing the code on Shopify, sending emails in Klaviyo, answering tickets in Zendesk. I was managing the agencies, eventually fired the agency, started running the ads myself too. Really enjoyed learning ads. So got deep into that. At a certain point, I had to leave just some family health issues and kind of had an opportunity to try a business, which is not something I ever meant to do, but I had a transition contract with my old job just because it was a bit of an abrupt departure. And because I like the ad side, I actually just built out a performance marketing agency. So Google ads, Facebook ads, Amazon ads for e-commerce brands. I spent over 8 figures on ads, like doing the media buying myself. So kind of understand the growth side quite intimately. But what happened is that at one point there was an e-com brand that had scaled a fair bit. I actually launched a couple of brands with him. And it was funny because he kept hiring accounting firms and kept asking me to review their work because he trusted me. And I just kept pointing out issues in the work they were doing. So I think by like the 3rd or 4th firm, I was just like, hey man, listen, if you really need me to do this, I don't want to, but I'll do it because you clearly need the help. And it just kind of became obvious to me from there that there is just a very significant need for good financial data and decision making in the e-com world. And I also know enough of my peers to know that like a lot of them just don't get how unique e-commerce is and just how much depth there is to the data there. So it was just kind of obvious that there was a very big opportunity, and I kind of had an unfair advantage given that I'd run a brand and understood the performance marketing side. So I was like, yeah, I just gotta, this is obviously the opportunity in front of me. So started UpCounting, which is an accounting and CFO firm that works with e-commerce brands specifically. Brands as small as doing $1 million a year. We have clients doing over $100 million a year, and we're able to kind of just fulfill the full fractional finance need. So as simple as bookkeeping to ERP implementation, financial modeling, anything you'd get out of a CFO.
Yep. Yeah. No, that was great. You encapsulated that very well. So it's kind of a similar thing that we've done. You sat behind like an e-commerce brand, performance marketing, but you also were in the walls of like a big corporate company too. So I came from Wells Fargo, was in that background, and I'm like, I had to get the cuffs off and go out and do some crazy startup stuff. But glad I did. You learn a lot by just kind of jumping in, and it's a completely different world outside of like corporate, but you can bring those skills and like what you see operationally within a corporate environment. It's great kind of applying that kind of in a smaller scale environment. And it's fun. I like building stuff. So it sounds like you're in the same boat as me, but yeah, it's I know we met it was Amplify Summit. That's right. So and I know it was a lot of Shark Tank kind of alumni there and things like that. Just curious now, kind of looking back at the business, and obviously we'll provide some more information about the business here within our My Competence portal. But in terms of like the key kind of core clients that you work with? You mentioned like 1 million. Is that kind of like your small range, or like kind of where does it start? If I'm looking at this from a customer standpoint, like what's my entry point? Is there something where you kind of have a minimum, and then kind of is there a maximum threshold for you?
Yeah, I mean, so I would say that we're very advanced in terms of the way that we do the work on the accounting side, and that's why while we can work with small brands, like I'm very pragmatic. Like I don't like selling accounting services just for the sake of accounting. Like for me, it's very much it's like this is going to help you make decisions. You're going to be bigger and better because you work with us, than if you don't. And where I feel like the merit of paying for someone like us really kicks in is around that $2 to $3 million a year range. Like I'll talk to brands doing say like 700K a year. And at that point, it's like, listen, man, it's not about your accounting. It's not about your cash flow. It's not about your margins. Like, don't worry about any of that. You just got to crack your offer. Like, just focus on figuring out acquisition. That is the number one thing. If you can crack that, then there's a lot of other games you can be playing to make sure that you go from 1 mil to 10 mil to 100 mil. But if you can't get past a mil, like usually your number one problem is just the acquisition and the offer. So put all of your energy into cracking that. That's why usually when you're at around 3 mil a year, let's say, that's where like, okay, now you have a bit of momentum. Now there's a bit of like a product market fit. And now there's more complexity in the business where the kind of stuff we do will actually move the needle.
Yep. Yep. Okay. No, good to know. And also too, just from like, there's like a volume perspective, but like, do you have certain regions that you focus on? And is it like kind of like a core focus, or can you work with clients really that are based anywhere?
We have clients all over the globe. We have clients in Europe and Australia and Canada,
Okay.
the US. Obviously, the bulk of it is in North America, and in that the bulk is in the US, especially just because there's just a lot of opportunity to scale there. There's a lot of funding options there. There's a lot that can be done, but we're pretty geographically agnostic.
Cool. Yeah, and same with us. I guess in math and numbers is kind of a universal language, right? So what goes in, you got to look at it from like a profit perspective and understand how to balance the books, man. So good to know. And in terms of like your office and location, do you have like a multi like regional setup, like where your office is and headquarters are?
We're fully remote, so I mean, I work
Okay.
from home, and I've been doing that for years. We have team members like all across the globe, like again, Asia, Europe, South America, North America. Technically our head office is in Montreal, in Canada.
Okay.
But like I go there sometimes just for meetings,
Yeah.
for the snacks. But I don't work
There
there.
you go. Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm actually in the office today. It's like, there's like tumbleweeds going through the office because I'm never here anyways, but it's great. They have great coffee here for sure.
Yeah.
And then they throw like random parties because we're in like this co-working space, kind of like a WeWork basically.
Nice.
It's like a high, I think it's even like a higher end WeWork, but it's great snacks, great coffee. So can't complain. But yeah, moving kind of more into some serious kind of like focal points here. Now, customers, you kind of mentioned, you kind of have this like wide open like arena in terms of like you can handle clients all over the globe. You have, kind of, you're looking at it from like, hey, this is kind of what the value would be. Start at like 200,000, kind of work your way up, and this is on a monthly basis. Now, when you crack open somebody's business, what is kind of like the number, let's say, maybe top two things that you see is like the biggest problem? And how do you like get under the hood and solve these maybe in the first like 30, 60 days? Like, what does that look like? Now, again, we don't want to give away your secret sauce here, but maybe just two problems that you see, kind of common themes, and like, what do you do to really kind of dive into those and get things moving?
Yeah, no, I mean, look, I don't hide my secrets. I'll happily share what the secret sauce is, but the number one thing I'd say is that I've realized that a lot of brands just do not have a robust system for determining how much they should be spending on ads and what their targets should be. So very, very common, even brands doing like 30, 40 million a year, if I'll ask them like, how do you decide how much to spend or what your targets are, they've usually done some sort of back of napkin math on like a break-even CAC number, and then they just kind of vibe out a bit of a ROAS target, and they just kind of that's it. And so then they just spend whatever they can, and if things start to feel tight and uncomfortable, they pull back. So it's a very big problem because it is fundamentally like the thing that decides more often than not whether or not your brand will be able to scale. And there really is kind of like an optimal target. Like if you're spending less than that, that's just wasteful because increasing your spend means you'll be making more profit. So make more profit. And what's worse is if you're spending more than that, because that means you're acquiring customers that will be lifetime unprofitable. So it's like, why would you acquire a customer that will never break even? That was a waste of your money unless you're just trying to prop up your revenue. So I'd say the adjusting of the scaling targets, like actually building them out and determining like what ad spend and CAC combo will get you your peak cohort profit, like maximize the lifetime contribution margin from the customers you're acquiring. That's by far the biggest needle mover. But to be able to do that, it's not just about like the math. Like we can pull the data and I can do the math in like 10, 15 minutes. What's necessary is I need good data to do the math. So if your inventory costing is off, if your margins are all blended together, like your Amazon and your TikTok shop, your Shopify is all just kind of blend together, and I don't know which channel is doing how much profit, all of that makes it very messy and difficult to understand. So I'd say by far that's the biggest one. The second one is the cash flow side. So a lot of times brands will just not have a very good plan for how much they're going to be investing. Even if they have good marketing, that's cool. Like if you're able to spend a lot on ads, that means you have really good, like a good product, good landing pages, good creative. That's fantastic. But you have to make sure you can sustain it from a cash flow perspective. And a lot of times brands don't have any sort of plan around that. So either they are overspending such that they're just going to slowly run out of the cash, or they just have cash just being wasted on things that don't matter. So just like a ton of inventory sitting there that they can't move, that they don't want to discount because they don't want to quote unquote cheapen the brand, but at the same time they can't pay for ads that are actually profitable. So the cash management is a big chunk of it.
So yeah, probably a lot of like Google Sheets you're seeing, just some napkin math or emails kind of going back and forth. Do you see, I mean, obviously they're coming to you for those services, but like, just like in looking at this, maybe out of like 10 businesses, and let's say they're all doing $200,000 to $500,000 a month, who's usually the one that's managing the finances that you see? Is it like the owner? Do they have like a VA? It's kind of a combination of both. Is that what you're seeing as far as who's kind of managing the books?
I'd say very often it's going to be some sort of like maybe a very average, like run-of-the-mill non-e-commerce accounting firm or a freelancer that's kind of doing it, and they're just reporting it up to the founder. I've in many instances talked to founders where they're maybe doing, I don't know, somewhere between 3 to 5 million a year, and they'll have their books done by the accounting firm, and yet they'll have their own little like made up P&L of their own where they're just kind of recreating all the data themselves. And I tell them, like, why are you maintaining your own like fake P&L? Like that should just be coming from the books. Like, oh, well, those numbers aren't reliable or accurate. I'm like, that just means they're not being done properly.
Yeah. No, there's I've seen, a lot of stuff out there. And again, it kind of it rhymes with what we do. We handle like the full payment stack and like let them do what they do best, which is market, run the business, and do, the marketing, right? I look at all these direct response guys and like that's their bread and butter, building the creatives, the ad sets, and all these different things where they can really amplify the brand. And I handle all that boring stuff in the back end, and that's where it works out really well because we can kind of tandem that. So let me segue into that. So, there's a lot of our clients, and I think a lot of your clients are using Shopify, and they're connecting to like various funnels, whether it's like Checkout Champ, Funnelish, Phoenix, right? But I think the main hub and kind of like the center of influence or the center for everything really is Shopify. And then they may be using QuickBooks or Xero, or maybe just Excel sheets or Google Sheets, whatever it may be. But you kind of created something really cool with the Growth Cash Dash, and you're able to kind of pull in that data from Shopify and from other sources of truth to be able to provide like real life modeling of where things are at today, and then proper forecasting and what tweaks that the merchant can make to improve the business. So maybe walk through that. I think a lot of merchants that we work with would see tremendous value in that because everything's in these different silos and we're pulling the information. But from what I've seen, you're able to put this in kind of one center of reference, and you're able to kind of speak through it and provide that data live in real time. So
yeah,
walk through that a little bit more.
For sure. So essentially, this was something that evolved over the years because kind of harkening back to the operator background I had running the e-commerce brand, for me, it was very important to look at the accounting data and break it up in a way that actually was very helpful for me to know how the brand was doing or not. I find that like a run-of-the-mill traditional P&L that you'll get out of QuickBooks, even if it's technically accurate from like a GAAP perspective or appropriate for a tax filing, like it doesn't give me enough meat to work with. So the way that we built out these dashboards is that it would start including metrics from platforms like Shopify and stuff, and blending metrics that you don't get from just the accounting data. The example I always point to is your new customer margin versus your returning customer margin. Like you can't get that just from accounting data because accounting data doesn't know which customers are new versus returning. So that's very functional insofar as decision making, because you need to have an understanding of like how much profit are you getting from your acquisition efforts versus your existing customer efforts. So essentially with the growth cash dash, what we did is, because the way the dashboards were originally built is it was plugged into all of our systems, and it was something that we did for our clients. So every one of our clients gets these dashboards. It was an opportunity to essentially build a dashboard that is very similar to that, but as a one-off consult that we do with brands, where we pull 13 months of their data and kind of just look at the annualized numbers. That way we're able to, in 1 hour, have a call with them, run through the scaling targets, the issues that they have from a margin perspective, profitability, cash flow, inventory concerns, and it's a very free-flowing conversation. But they're very fun calls for me, honestly, because it's just digging deep into the strategy and using the numbers as a guide to where the issues are. So we don't spend a lot of time just walking through the numbers. Like, I'll review it ahead of the call. I see the numbers, so I have a story kind of already forming, and then I just talk to them. And they tell me, like, this is what I'm trying to do, this is my issue, this is what I'm trying to grow. And I'm like, okay, well, these are the constraints based on the data.
Yeah.
And this is what you need to fix. And if you fix this, just do that, and you will get to the next level. And so it makes the conversation a lot more data driven. Because the founders have that's it. It's obviously their data, but they just don't use it and don't know how to read it. So they're just kind of running on vibes.
Yeah. That and vibe coding probably. So a little bit of Claude in there. But yeah, I think, having one kind of source of truth and then having those additional elements, like you mentioned, like there's accounting firms that kind of, they do it all, right? They work with retail businesses, online businesses, omni-channel, construction businesses. I mean, there's a wide range, but you're hyper focused on e-com, right? And so that's the same thing with us. There's merchant processors that do everything, but they don't really have like a zone in that e-com space. And you can tell like the level of intelligence and like some of the questions that they ask, and they're kind of hacking their way through it when we work with, different agents that may do a little bit of everything. But yeah, we're hyper focused in like more of the high risk, just online space. And we don't do retail. I used to in my past life, but again, different. I think the same kind of fundamentals with accounting. You want somebody that really lives, breathes, understands your industry. Everything is a lot more different than what you believe it is in terms of how we're looking at this from our side. So, good to kind of understand. And, there's definitely value in being able to put all that data into kind of one area and speak through it, almost like storytelling, right? Just kind of going through the data and making plans around that. So,
that's exactly it. And I agree. The specialization is very key, because for a lot of founders who don't necessarily have the technical savvy or familiarity with anything like payment processing or financial data or whatever, a lot of times they just don't realize how bad what they have is, because they don't know any better. And it's not their fault. It's just like you wouldn't know until you've seen what better looks like. And at the same time, even the other providers, like your average payment person or your average accountant, they don't know what good e-commerce data looks like. So they're just doing their best. And so it's kind of just like the unknown.
Yeah, exactly. Well, appreciate that on the growth cam and understanding kind of what that does for clients. And what are some cool things that you're working on moving into the future? I know obviously you've talked about your services, what you're doing. You seem to have a very hands-on approach, but I'm sure there's some more stuff that you're building. Your team's growing. I've heard great things from mutual clients of ours, but what's kind of 1 to 2 key things that you're working on here in the next 6 months or so?
Well, my plans extend far into the future. I'm a pretty aggressive person, but I mean, fundamentally, I just really, really love e-commerce, and I love seeing the brands that work with us grow. And so I am constantly trying to expand upon the scope of the things that anybody would expect from an accounting firm, because if I see an opportunity to drive more value, help them make better decisions, and put them into a position where they're more likely to scale, like that's I'm all over that. So, for example, I make a lot of introductions to creative agencies, because a lot of the times when I do the analysis, I look through the ad accounts, I see what their scaling targets are. I'm like, yeah, this is what you need. I know good agencies, plug them in, and they're going to drive value for you. But I'd say the probably one of the really neat things that I'm working on essentially is trying to find a way to essentially get my strategic finance frameworks made available to all the brands that work with us, because we have a lot of clients and I am but one man who already works 7 days a week. So on the one hand, I do offer weekly office hours, which I think is unique, that like any of our clients can just show up and just ask me questions, and like that's available. They don't have to pay anything extra for it. Like I'm just there to help. But on top of that, it's being able to take a lot of the frameworks that I have and very specific ways that I analyze finance data and then feed that through certain, like basically AI built systems that can then flag certain alerts and markers that there might be performance issues, which can then flag the client directly in Slack or raise it to me and my team, so that we can be like, hey, there's something going wrong with this client. So now we can be proactive about figuring out what they need, whether that be a funding thing or an expense allocation thing or an agency replacement or something. We have better visibility into those things, because probably the most common thing I hear from brands when I talk to them is that the problem they have with the people they work with, like on the accounting side, they're reactive, they're not proactive. And this is my attempt to be proactive.
Yeah. No, awesome. That's cool. That's might be something I might steal from you, the office hours. So you have like, is it like a 1 hour kind of like webinar thing that you do with everybody and everyone just peppers you with questions, or how does that work?
Yeah, it's basically a 1 hour. It's a weekly call. Whichever client shows up or don't show up, it doesn't matter. Like they're all invited. Everybody can, and there's nothing like specifically prepared for it, because I already have a lot of course material. As much as possible, like anything I know about how I interpret finance data and how I think about ecom, all that I've given to our clients. So it's all available from like a material perspective. So I don't really have any new stuff to teach per se. You just show up and then it's just application. Like how do you take those principles and apply it to your brand, to your situation? Right. So they're fun calls.
Cool. Well, that's cool. Definitely looking at, we're broadening out too, in kind of a similar way. I want to give all the tools and resources to my clients, and obviously they can select what they need and apply it to their business as well. So yeah, a lot of the methodologies that we do are the same, but probably steal that one from me on the office hours once we get there. So, but cool. Yeah, I think in terms of the questions, anything else you want to leave with the audience here? Again, our clientele, we range from about the same range there, 100,000 a month, up to, we have clients doing up to, 20 million a month. But kind of our core is really getting them to grow and really start to mature and hit that $1 million a month and then 2 million. But we want to try to be in the front end where they're learning all those, like just the payment processing best practices and installing the right structures in place so they can grow and they don't have issues. Anything on your side you'd like to leave the audience with, knowing that we kind of have the same kind of ICP? I was going to drop your demo link and everything like that after the call. If someone wants to set up something with you can click the link and book a meeting. But any final comments on your side?
I guess maybe just at a high level, like the importance of actually being able to have clear data to make decisions is really something that can't be under or overstated. I think a lot of founders have an intellectual understanding of the fact that like accounting and finance is important, but intuitively they've never really experienced it driving value for them, which is why a lot of them just don't make it a priority. And so I'll talk to a lot of 7 and 8 figure founders who are just like, oh yeah, no, I get it, it's important, but then they don't do anything about it. But it's very rare to come across a 9-figure founder who is not like super into their finance data, because that's how they got there. They realized how important it was to their actual success. And so I think that's one of those things that ultimately I get that it's boring, but it's not about thinking like it's accounting and finance like a thing over there on the side that just needs to get done at some point. Like it is fundamentally just a truth about what your business is. It is not 100% of the picture. I realize that there's a lot of important information that lives outside of the P&L, but it is like 80% of all the data you need to really understand, like, am I doing well? What do I need to do next? And how am I going to get there? So I think ignoring that is just foolish.
Yeah. You definitely can tell the maturity level once you start hitting that nine figures, kind of realm. The data is just a lot more dialed in, right? The owner and the founder is very involved, and you can start to see that separation there for sure. So definitely agree with your sentiments. And, again, thanks again for having, or sorry, I shouldn't say having, or taking the time to come on today and speaking with us. And, what we'll do is we'll drop a link. And so if you're interested, we'll have a link just to basically break down the services, the dash cam. I call it the dash cam. I don't know why, but we'll have that there. And, if you want to book a call with Abir and his team, be more than happy to walk you through what they do. And, again, thanks for coming on today and joining us. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. It was my pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Cool. Perfect.